management student, and we are going to be presenting theme F, Empowering Renewal. We're focusing on the housing stock. So with Scott's first initial presentation, with this idea where we're trying to sort of come up with framing something that's nearly impossible to frame or solve, and so we took a crack at it, and this is what we have to share. So this is sort of the question we asked ourselves, and part of what we're sort of tackling. This question here is, how can a burden be transformed into an asset for the community? So of course this is sort of very broad question, so we tried to narrow down the scope a little. And what we did was we looked at the sort of the objectives for the theme, and what we did was we sort of diagrammed this. Can we dim the lights just a little? Thank you. And so what you have visualized here is sort of Waters Avenue as a whole system. And what we did was, instead of focusing on Waters Avenue and renewal, we actually reframed a little bit. And what we decided to do is go into blocks of Waters Avenue, sort of dismantling a little bit of this wide scope of opportunity. And so because we realized that blocks are where the people are, each neighborhood has assets and critical opportunities that we can very much maximize in diffusing those skills in the community. So we translated even further these negative qualities that are being sort of reflected in the theme. And so we summarize them as decay and crime. And what we wanted to do is transform these, I guess, opportunities and make them into positive outcomes. How can we create these positive reverberations and sort of have that diffuse into the Waters Avenue corridor? So we came up with these three different positive attributes, which is pride, renewal, and economic generation. And so, of course, what could this be was the ultimate question. And so on day one, Megan's going to explain a little bit about what we did there.
We started our walkabout, which a lot of the other groups, we all did, and started at Southern Pine Company located in Midtown, 35th and East Broad. And we were able to experience an oral history from a neighbor, Ms. Frederica Taharka. And she's a local resident, many generations in her family. And she shared stories about the neighbors and how there was an old system of bartering, and they would share goods and help one another when it came to nutrition, food, or needing something fixed in their home. And as she kind of summed it up, was that the residents are the eyes of the blocks, aware of the crime, the needs, and the barriers that citizens experience. And then after we made it through the neighborhood and made our way for lunch, we opened up the discussion after we all ate and kind of recapped our experience to this. Housing stock in Savannah is a long-term complex challenge that will require sustained support and community trust. How can our group come up with a solution in 3 days and these innovative short-term ideas that can contribute to the overall vision of Waters Avenue?
I will talk about day 2. So this was kind of our most productive day, I would say. It also was maybe the most confusing, and just in general, it was just one of our better days. So day 2 was all about discussing and debating. So we went back to the drawing board, split up into 3 separate groups, and talked about what the challenges, the assets, and the opportunities were. So this is kind of our final wall of what we had. So each group worked independently as 3 separate groups on each of those 3 categories. So we all came back at the end of the day and talked about what we thought each of those assets, opportunities, and also the challenges were, and this was a little bit of that discussion. The interesting thing is that a lot of the things that came out of the 3 separate groups were very much so related. And a lot of the challenges actually were also assets. So at the end of day 2, our design voices, Mark, Liz, and Mike, came together and discussed everything in kind of a final overall design voice for the day. There's 3 overall ideas. So the ideas that we came up with should move beyond academic bonds and focus on social bonds, because social bonds build trust, and trust is essential in reaching our goals. So I think a lot of us have come up with the idea of trust in the neighborhood, Number 2 was ideas should represent an equal relationship between existing residents and SCAD. So one of the big parts of that was the 50-50 idea, make sure that the residents are involved and that SCAD is involved. And then number 3 was ideas should prioritize existing residents and relate to housing. So those are our 3 final concepts.
So what we did with these 3 concepts is on this morning's workshop, we sort of synthesized these ideas and developed a conceptual framework. And it's sort of based on several pieces, so I'll walk through them. So what we have here is sort of a scale, but I'm going to walk through what this is reflecting first, and then I'll get into more detail. So what we have visualized in the right here is so what we have on the bottom is sort of engagement levels of engagement. So this sort of light blue color reflects a low level of engagement of a neighborhood community that might, we propose a concept here, a cleanup day, and that would just involve that neighborhood community. The sort of intermediate level of engagement would be community gardening, sort of providing the resources and then the skill sets needing to know how to do that process, and then of course high level of engagement, which would be sort of the more complex project, which would involve housing restoration. And so these sort of curves reflect one block. One block could scale to a high level of engagement, intermediate or low level of engagement. So what we did was we plotted them on a platform that is represented by the light gray area. And this would be sort of a process where one block on the far left would go through an iterative process of developing either a cleaning day or a gardening initiative. And they would, all the resources, all the knowledge that they generate would sort of fall back into this sort of baseline of platform that basically other block or communities could use and to inform an initiative that they're interested in doing, or possibly inventing a new one. So using what's being generated, the knowledge being generated, and then feeding that back into the community. So we have a cyclical process here that resonates not just with one block, but also can feed into the others. So what we've done here is not just talk about this conceptual framework, but we wanted to sort of frame for the audience and for this future process, what this might look like in the future if it was integrated currently in the community of Waters Avenue. So we've devised a little sort of script reading, and that's why we have our fellow guests here sitting in the front. We're going to go through a quick story of what it might look like to integrate Block Lab into the Waters Avenue corridor. So Ryan's going to join us over here on the left side. And she's going to start off by presenting the introduction. Thank you.
So thank you, Kyle. Just a brief introduction to our panel. Basically, our topic is to renew the buildings. We're doing housing, so that's what's important to our group. We have found a very interesting strategy that we would like to share with you to restore the buildings and to make them beautiful. But this is a story, and this is where we start, just with the basics. This all begins with a sense of trust, so just what we talked about. How do you create the trust? A horizontal structure, so something that runs horizontally to help keep everything organized. We must work with existing resources and people that are already willing to do something. So this would be our panel. This will help establish trust. So with the simple actions like cleanup, which Kyle just talked about, to a more elaborate community garden, and to a bigger project initiative with funding, outdoor construction, and reconstruction. I will now hand over to our first actor, Ruthie.
I've been a member of the neighborhood for 40 plus years. My role as a block captain is to bring the residents together, act as an informed source and an event organizer, mainly to serve as a representative voice for the residents of the block. My goal is to reduce crime, specifically the drug trade, and to beautify the neighborhood block by block. I am accomplishing these goals by working with businesses, organizations, and other citizens who can share these resources. In the past, Waters Avenue was a thriving and vibrant community where citizens knew each other and supported the businesses. There was a strong sense of community. There is one improvement I would like to see. There is an empty lot a few feet from my home that I would like to see as a community garden. I think that a community garden would be an asset and a benefit to the residents in the block, but we need help to make this a reality.
Southern Pine is a local business that believes in material reincarnation. Through local building deconstruction, we are able to recover valuable historical materials. We filter these materials through residential, commercial, educational, as well as community projects. We also encourage historic trades of local craftsmen and help keep these trades alive with historic preservation projects and job-based training. One roadblock that we hit often is a lack of available information of scheduled demolition projects in Savannah. If we don't know beforehand, we cannot intervene and salvage these buildings. In addition to that barrier, we also lack a properly trained deconstruction crew. The more houses we save, the more local labor we hire. For the Block Lab project that Ruthie wants, Southern Pine is in need of innovative designers to use our reclaimed materials in inspiring and sustainable ways. We look to SCAD to help make this project an attainable goal.
SCAD has previously been involved in numerous projects surrounding the Waters Avenue revitalization efforts. But as a SCAD student, I feel SCAD and I can provide more out of the classroom, helping the community that we coexist within. Two things I want to see focused on are sustainable and scalable projects.
As a facilitator of the Block Lab, we provide a platform that allows individual blocks to become fertile for improvement, change, and growth, thereby enabling this revitalization that we're after. This platform for renewal provides both physical tools and training for small construction and renovation projects on individual lots and structures. Provides agricultural training and tools for creating these community gardens. And opportunities are there for knowledge and experience sharing that can feed into other blocks, so it becomes a cyclical thing. And we provide teaching moments, or have an opportunity for teaching moments with interaction that facilitates learning of new skills, as well as capitalizing on our existing assets. Anyone in the neighborhood can use the Block Lab to improve their own block. Other projects have served as models for this. Blocks have been installed, landscaping's been done, and reuse of materials has been accomplished. The Block Lab approach should help create the buzz that we're after, enthusiasm and engagement of people living in the neighborhood, so they're willing to work together for the benefit of all.
Now, my role in the Community Garden Project was to bring residents together to participate in the creation of the garden and to help them understand the benefit this garden brings to the block. I was pleased to see my original goal of bringing organizations, businesses, and citizens together to share resources in accomplishing this project. The Block Lab is creating a permanent base where information on successful projects can be archived for future reference by other neighborhoods. We use the Block Lab's resource library of landscapers, horticulturists, and nurseries. We also utilize the Tool Share program.
It was a great experience seeing my design using Southern Pine's reclaimed materials executed within the community. I really enjoyed getting a hands-on experience of working with my community to improve the block.
Southern Pine was able to donate reclaimed studs and lumber from salvage building to be used within this garden. We were also able to share our knowledge of woodworking and general construction skills to assist the community in completing this garden project.
As a result of the garden project, there was so much buzz circulating around the community. The efforts were printed in the local newsletters, diffused in the community, and published in the city paper.
There was a domino effect where other blocks wanted to create a garden as well. Other neighborhoods duplicated the project in their area. This event also brought people together, creating pride within the neighborhood.
Well, one of my friends a few blocks away, they started doing some things in their block. and I had some interest in their activities. I wanted to know what's going on. So my friend, she said they'd been to some meeting and found out there was revitalization going on. And I said that, well, maybe in our area we can have a community garden or something like that. I already know some people around the block. I think I'll try it in my neighborhood to get something going. You know how things spread, where a friend asks a friend, and there's a vacant lot. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we'll come up with something. I really think I can get something going.
Because of the scalability and the sustainability of the garden design, I can easily implement the design in different areas around the Waters Avenue corridor.
So what this story has reflected is that Block Lab has the option to just make everybody work together as a community and build the trust amongst the community and also the SCAD academic world. And the decentralized network of community engagement, and also restore the pride, which Ruby just touched on. Thanks to the integration of Block Lab over the last 3 days, a strong sense of empowerment has enabled the community to grow a deep-rooted sense of desire and to improve pride in their neighborhoods and also in the community. I would also like to say, while you're all up here, a very special thank you to our community leaders, Ruthie, Sigmund, and also Marvin. I think it's very important that you guys were a part of this process and that we had people that were very much from the neighborhoods that we're talking about. So thank you very much.